are four types of things that Congress can consider. Okay, bills. All right, we know that. You have what are called resolutions. All right. So have you ever heard, like on the radio or something like, today is National Pancake Day, or today is Patriots Day, or Patriot Day? Have you ever heard of this? National what?
Today's National Cookie Day.
You heard that? Is that true?
No, I'm serious.
Okay. So Congress passes the House passes a simple resolution that December 4th will be National Cookie Day.
Wait, so this is actually thing that happened.
They do this kind of thing. Now, if both houses do it, it's a joint resolution or a concurrent resolution. Now, here's another thing. That would be a simple resolution or a concurrent resolution. Now, a joint resolution is a little bit different. Okay, so let's say Congress passes a law, the president signs it into law. Okay, it's prime time, and then somebody realizes that they left something out, or they misspelled something, or something needed to be fixed. Both houses could pass a joint resolution, okay, to fix something that's already been passed. So they don't have to go through the whole process. Now that's pretty rare, okay? And then the other resolutions are just generally, maybe an adoption of new procedure or a new holiday or something like that. Okay. Nothing that is binding. Now a federal holiday, like if you're gonna make Martin Luther King Day federal holiday, you're going to shut down the banks, you're going to shut down the government, that's going to pass, you're going to need to pass a law. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. Now, every bill that is introduced, okay, is going to be sent to a committee. It's going to be referred to a committee. So we're on step 2 now. Okay. Who gets to decide in the House which committee a bill is sent to? Who gets to decide which committee a bill is sent to in the Senate? The Senate Majority Leader. Okay? And each one of those committees is going to have a chair, yes? That chair is going to be of the majority party. And that chair holds in, that bill holds its fate. What they do with it, yes? So if the speaker or the majority leader in the Senate doesn't like the bill, they will send it to a committee where they know it will die, where it will be pigeonholed. Everybody with me? Okay. Thus far, we've already got 2 answers on the test. Okay, questions about how a bill becomes a law. All right. Now, what does the committee do with the bill? Okay, most bills die here, or on number 3, sits on the committee's chair's desk, never looked at. However, if they want the bill to move forward, actually, B there says full body can force a bill out of committee after 30 days. Discharge position, this rarely happens. You don't need to know that for the test. Okay, then it's going to be studied. It's going to be sent to one of the subcommittees. So remember how we talked about the Agriculture Committee may have 3 or 4 different subcommittees. So which subcommittee does this bill need to go to? And once it gets to subcommittee, okay, they're going to study it and they're going to have public hearings. Okay, these are required to be public. All right, and what a committee hearing room looks like, something like this. Okay. So you have members of the committee sitting in a kind of a semicircular room like this, okay? And you would have your chairperson here, okay? And these would be witnesses that would come testify at the hearings. We're listening to proponents of a bill and opponents of a bill. So if this is in the House right now, the Republicans are bringing the bill forward. It's in subcommittee. They're going to have a hearing, okay? The Republicans are going to invite witnesses to talk, and the Democrats are going to bring witnesses to talk. and they will ask them questions about the legislation. Does this make sense? And so we, generally have a good idea what they're going to talk about. But the other thing they're trying to do, guys, is bring attention to the bill. Okay? They're trying to build support for the bill. Now, do Republicans and Democrats already know how they're going to vote on this bill? Probably. Okay? So some of this is important, though, now, especially if it's a bill that both sides support, because we want to get it right if it's going to become a law. Yes? So these witnesses can be important. These could be government officials. These could be experts in the area. If you really want to bring support to the bill, you could bring in somebody famous to testify. Okay? Because, guys, members do not have to show up for these hearings. So you could show up at a hearing and the room look like this. But if you want to draw attention to it, bring in somebody famous, like a celebrity. Or you're talking about a bunch of old white guys. How about bringing Miss America to testify? Guess who'll show up? It's Congress. Now, name somebody famous.
Taylor Swift.
Who?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Okay. You guys know what music swapping files stuff. Yeah, we have Pandora and Spotify now. But when music first went digital, okay, there was this website that this guy developed called Napster. Okay, and what you could do is go onto the website and download music, and then share it with your friends. Now, there's a problem here because that music is copyrighted. So if you're swapping music files with your friends, nobody's paying for that. And the musicians that created that music are getting hosed. Okay? But it was awesome because you're like, dude, I got all this music. You want? Check it out. I'll share it with you. I mean, it's crazy. Okay? I had like 1,000 songs I got from a guy, one of my students, actually. Okay, so Napster got sued. And so they brought in some musicians. Now, this is before Taylor Swift's time. Anybody know who Lars Ulrich is? Who is he? He's the drummer for Metallica. Okay. Now, has everybody heard of Metallica? Yeah. Okay. They're a heavy metal rock band. Okay. And so if news says, hey, Lars Ulrich, the drummer for Metallica, is coming to testify in a congressional hearing, who else is going to show up? There's going to be fireworks here. Media's going to show up. Okay? Cameras. All these people are going to show up. Okay? It's going to be on the news. People are going to be talking about it. Okay? Today it would be on Twitter. Back in the 80s, when rock and roll started to get pretty darn heavy, there was a band called Twisted Sister. How many of you guys have heard Twisted Sister? All right. That was the first concert I ever went to. 6th grade. At the Carmel Ice Skating Rink. We had an ice rink in our town, and told my mom and dad, we'd go to the ice rink all the time. Yeah. And there's a concert, Mom and Dad, can I go? 6th grade. And they had all the makeup on, and Dee Snider is and he's like, we're not gonna take it. No. And so like parents were like upset about some of the lyrics in their music. And so the vice president's wife, Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, wanted to start putting warning labels on music lyrics, on music, and not allowing children to buy this music. Okay? And so Dee Snider agreed to come testify at a hearing. Now, D. Schneider, although he's a rocker, he's an intelligent guy, as is Lars Ulrich. These guys aren't dummies. They're human beings. Some of them brilliant. Okay? And he showed up to testify, and he had a blast. I mean, he just mocked them. Okay, for being so silly, like, oh, these lyrics are dangerous for our kids, just like Elvis Presley was dangerous for our kids. Okay, because everybody freaked out about Elvis Presley and his pulsating hips. Because nobody moved like Elvis Presley. They put him on TV and they said, you can't show his hips on TV. So, if you want to draw attention, you bring in somebody famous, right? And they do this all the time with famous people, okay? Actors, and some of these actors and so forth are activists in nature, and they have their pet causes that they take up and so forth, and members of Congress will use those folks to bring attention to a law. Now, this could be an average citizen as well. Have any of you guys ever heard of a law called Megan's Law? You might know it, but maybe not by name. Megan was a young girl that lived in what her parents thought was a safe neighborhood. What Megan's family didn't realize is that a convicted sex offender who had been to jail, got out of jail, done his time, moved into their neighborhood. This was a child sex offender. And Megan became his next victim. So Megan's mother contacted her member of Congress and said, listen, there ought to be a law that people should know when convicted sex offenders move into their neighborhood. When Megan's mother testified in front of Congress, okay, in a hearing, there was nearly a dry eye left in the room after she told what happened to her daughter. Okay, the impact of a citizen that is affected by a situation can have a big impact here. Okay, and so you guys know today there's a law that if somebody's convicted of a sex offense, there's a registry, right? And you can go online. I think there's actually an app you can download on your phone and see where people live near you that have been convicted of sex crimes. And first thing you'll notice is how many freaking people are walking the streets of Wichita that have been convicted of sex crimes. It's crazy. Okay. One of my closest friends, he used to be an assistant coach for me, was a parole officer. And these are people that get out of prison. Okay, they're on parole. He was tied to the sex offenders. So all of his people were sex offenders. And he did that for a couple of years. It almost killed him. I mean, it was just like being around these people every day was terrible. They're sick individuals, many of them, but they've done their time. Now, there's another law in Kansas that Carla Stovall, who was the former Attorney General of Kansas, argued in front of the Supreme Court. If you are convicted of a sex crime in the state of Kansas, and you are still considered a threat, even after you do your time, Kansas passed a law that said we can have you institutionalized, like in a medical hospital, okay, until you are no longer deemed a threat, which could be for the rest of your life. Now, is that fair to that individual? I mean, you have due process. You did your time, you get out, and you continue to be punished. Guys, you know what recidivism rates are? The likelihood of once committing a crime, doing it again. Recidivism rates amongst especially child predators is extremely high. They will continue to do it over and over and over again. Okay? So, Carlos Stovall, the Attorney General, won that case in front of the Supreme Court. Okay, so that's a law in Kansas. All right. Moving forward. All right, so you got hearings, government officials, experts, public, anyone with interest can give testimony in person or writing. These hearings, as well as instructions for presenting testimony, officially published in the Federal Register. So anytime a hearing takes place, they record it, write it up, and it goes in the Federal Register. Okay, after the hearings are over, in subcommittee, they're going to do what's called markup. Okay, this is where the real work gets done. Again, I'm talking about a bill that is likely to pass, has support in both parties. These members are going to sit down around the table, okay, and they're going to work out the exact details of the law. This is where lawyers become important, because you've got to get the wording right. You've got to take into consideration existing law, how much this will cost, where they're going to get the money for it, how it will be implemented. All of these things have to be taken into consideration. This is where the real work of Congress is done, in the markup session. Where's the real work of Congress done? In the markup session. Okay, the meat and potatoes, the genuine debate takes place in these markup sessions. Okay, so if the subcommittee decides to report or recommend the bill back to the full committee for approval, they can make changes, amendments to it. This process is called markup. If the subcommittee votes not to report the bill to the full committee, it dies. Okay? Now, these committees and subcommittees have experts that work for them. I mentioned this the other day. Like, you could go get a college degree in something, become an expert on it, and go to work for the subcommittee on agricultural exports. Okay, you studied international business and trade at K-State with an emphasis on agriculture. You're an expert. Okay, or you've worked in that field. Now you want to work for the committee. Okay. All right. So once that goes from the subcommittee to the full committee, they review it, the deliberations and recommendations of the subcommittee. The committee may now conduct further review, more hearings, or simply vote on it. Okay? So you get to the full committee, they can do this. Okay, turn the page, 76. They've got 4 options at the full committee. Okay? How many options? Pass it with a positive recommendation. This is called reporting the bill to the full body. Pass the bill with no recommendation. Pass it with an unfavorable recommendation. Obviously, this is rare. Why would you do that? Or 3, kill it. This is not ready for prime time. Voting it up. Voting it down. It dies. Okay. Now, if a bill is, something that is necessary and looks like we need to move it forward, it's got support. Let me give you something that is popular. Okay. Here's a law that we will give tax breaks to businesses that hire veterans. For each veteran they hire, they will get a tax break. Just like for each child you have, as a married couple, you get a tax break. Okay, I'm about to lose one of mine. Already lost one of my tax breaks. He's too old. Lily's 19. We're going to lose her before too long here. Okay. Yeah.
Don't you get a tax break for hiring like ex-cons too?
Some states have that. I don't know if it's a federal law or not. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about, being an ex-con. It's hard to find a job. To get back on your feet and do right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there may be some tax breaks in there for that. Does that make sense? So the bill's moving forward. Okay. So now they're going to publish a committee report. We've got this bill. It's all been worked on. It's been approved. Now, the Affordable Care Act, guys, or Obamacare, was 2,600 pages long. Some of these bills are bigger than the Bible. Okay? Who's going to read all that? So they need a committee report okay, or a summary of the bill. This is of great importance, okay? The report will include the purpose of the bill, its impact on existing laws, budgetary considerations, any new taxes or tax increase that will be required. The report will typically contain the transcripts from the hearings, as well as opinions of the committee for and against the proposed bill. This is what most Congress people base their decision on, not the debate. What do most members of Congress make their decision based on what document? Look, Obamacare, 2,600 pages, okay? You're a moderate Republican or you're a moderate Democrat. You want to look at this and decide, do I want to vote with this? Because you know the left wingers are going to vote for it. You know the right wingers are going to vote against it. So we're talking about the people in the middle. So it's 2,600 pages. You got 3 days to read it before we're going to vote on it. You need this report. Okay, it's a summary of the bill. This is what most members of Congress are going to read. They don't have time to read a 300-page bill, let alone a 2,600-page bill. Now, if you work for that member of Congress, they may send you home over the weekend and say, listen, I need you to read this 300-page bill. And I need you to tell me anything in this bill that I would object to. So there went your weekend. Okay, that's what you're going to be doing this weekend if you work for that member of Congress. Okay, because that member of Congress isn't going to read. They're too busy for that. How many members of Congress actually read 2,600 pages of the Affordable Care Act? I know of 2 that read the entire bill. Okay, out of 535. Two. Rand Paul. I forget the other guy's name. But Rand Paul read it, because I remember him talking about it. Okay. All right, so we're ready for the floor. So most bills start in the House, yes? Because they spend money or taxes. So you got 435 members. You got this big room. 435 people. We're going to debate this bill on the floor. Now, if you look at the floor, the bill is placed on the calendar in the House or Senate, consideration or debate by the full membership. So they have different calendars. You don't need to know that. Okay. So the Speaker or the Senate Majority Leader will decide the order that these bills are reported, okay, and debated. So you got a 2,600-page document or a 300-page document or a 10-page document. How long are we going to debate this? How long do you want to debate? An hour? Let's debate it an hour. Okay? 1 hour of debate. Republicans get 30 minutes. Democrats get 30 minutes. Who wants to speak on this? Ashton, you want to speak on this? Bill? Joseph wants to speak. Sure. Emma wants to speak. You got 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes. Angelina, you got 5 minutes. Darcy, you got 2 minutes. Okay. All right. So, as Elizabeth can tell us, you have to be recognized in order to speak. Okay. So the chair recognizes Mr. Rodriguez for 5 minutes. Okay. Say he only uses 4. I'm going to yield 1 minute of my time to Andy, and Andy will talk for 1 minute. Okay. And then it just goes back and forth for 30 minutes on each side. Okay. Now you're done. There's more to it than that. Okay. The debate. So we're on number 9 now. It's the second reading. debate. Now, the committee can go as a whole. Okay, so here's where we get into some trouble, or really big differences between the House and the Senate. Okay, so because there's 435 people, trying to have a debate with 435 people is a mess. Okay, especially on a really important bill. So they're going to have very strict rules in the House. They have what's called open, closed, and modified. Okay, this is in the House. Okay, and this is going to be decided by the House Rules Committee. Okay, so let's say the bill started in the House Agriculture Committee, subcommittee on exports. Then it went to the full Agriculture Committee. They passed it with a positive recommendation. Then it's going to go to the House Rules Committee, and they're going to decide how long are we going to debate this. Okay, so length of debate. And are they going to allow amendments? To this point, guys, who are the only people that have worked on this bill who have had a say in it? The subcommittee and the full committee, which could be about 30 members, say. So only 30 of the 435 have worked on this bill. Do you think the other 400 want to have a say? They might. So an amendment to the bill would be what? To the bill. A change to the bill. Okay? So, are they going to allow any amendments? If it's open, they allow some amendments. Okay? So, Representative Ebright from Kansas would like to add something to this bill or take something away. Well, they're going to have, the whole body's going to have to vote on that amendment. All 435 are going to have to vote on that amendment. So the more amendments you allow, the longer it takes. You following me? Okay? These are key, okay? Now, the length of the debate really doesn't matter. I mean, they can talk about this till they're blue in the face. Nobody's really listening because most members of Congress make up their mind about how they're going to vote based on what? The report. They know what's in the bill. You can talk to your blue in the face. You're not changing my mind. Or I'm already voting for it. Why am I listening to you talk about it? The debate doesn't really mean it. It's just hot air. People talking. Okay? But these amendments are going to be important. Closed, no amendments. So the work of the committee is very important because you're using what they took. Modified will allow amendments for certain parts of the bill, but not others. So in the House, strict rules for how this bill comes to the floor. Yeah.
Who decides if it's
The House Rules Committee. So every bill that makes it to the floor goes to the House Rules Committee first. The Senate doesn't have a Rules Committee. Talk about the Senate in a minute. Okay. So let's say no amendments and 1 hour of debate on the House floor. Okay. Then they're going to bring it up for a vote. Okay. Now let's talk about the Senate. So the bill is introduced in the Senate, goes to the committee, subcommittee, does the same thing, hearings, markup, and then it's recommended to the full body of 100. Okay? This body looks more like this with 100 desks in it. Okay? Now, so, strict rules in the House. The rules in the Senate are, there are no rules. There's no limit on debate. There's no limit on the number of amendments you can add. What are the rules in the Senate? There are no rules when it comes to these two things. Now, that means you could debate for hours, days, weeks, months, years. You can add whatever amendments you want to this bill all day long. Unless all 100 senators agree to some rules. So, Senator Moran for Kansas, would like to be recognized. Mr. President, I would like to ask unanimous consent to limit amendments on this to 0 and debate to 1 hour. And then the President of the Senate will say, unanimous consent agreement. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All of them say nay. Nay. All it takes is 1 senator. Boo. Yeah. So 100 to 0 gets you a unanimous consent agreement.
You know the longest they've ever been there for a debate was?
Okay. Days.
Didn't you take like a recess or something?
Okay. So you guys know what I'm about to talk about. What am I about to talk about? If one senator disagrees, 99 to 1, and that senator gets the floor, is recognized, that senator can stand and talk and debate and add endless amendments to the bill for as long as they can stand, for as long as they can talk. This is called a what? A filibuster. Okay? Now, if you get 2 senators to do that, I can stand and talk and debate for an hour. Then I'm going to yield the floor to you, my friend, and I'm going to go take a break, get something to eat, use the restroom while you're talking for an hour, and then you yield the floor back to me. The filibuster really stops a vote from taking place. You can't pass something that you don't get to vote on because somebody is filibustering the floor. Does that make sense? The longest filibuster by a single senator is just over 24 hours. His name was Senator Strom Thurmond of South Carolina. And what he was filibustering was the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Okay, Strom Thurmond was a Democrat, and then he was a Dixiecrat. He was splinter party. Okay, and later in life, when he died at the ripe old age of 100, after being reelected at 96 as a Republican, Strom Thurmond died at 100 as a sitting senator. Now that's hard to do, to talk for 24 hours. Okay? I talk all day. But you better not be drinking much water the day before. Because you're going to have to pee at some point. Okay, yes. Yes. Strom Thurmond. What's that? He stood there. Okay, so this is what you do. You need to have a quorum in order to conduct business. Now, the other 99 members could have walked out, and that's okay. As long as Thurmond doesn't call for a quorum. if the senator says, I need a quorum, Mr. President, that means the sergeant at arms is going to go down the hallway and start bringing senators in. You got to have 51 present to conduct business. So you can rotate people in and out as long as you keep 51 people in. Does that make sense? So, listen, if there's 2 senators that are going to do this, they could do this for weeks. So what in reality happens, guys, the other party doesn't make you actually filibuster. You just threaten the filibuster, okay? Let's say right now you've got 49 Republicans, is that right? Or 48 Republicans? If the Republicans say they're going to filibuster, the Democrats don't actually make them do it. It would be a waste of time. So they just don't bring it up for a vote. It's a way to stop a vote from taking place. Now, if you have 1 senator or a couple, you might let them, blow off their steam, let them filibuster for a few hours, and then maybe hold a vote. Because there is a way to stop a filibuster. Okay? And it takes 60 votes to pass what's called a cloture. If you have 60 votes, you can stop a filibuster. So right now, if the Republicans are united and there's 48 of them, the Senate tries to pass a bill and they say we're going to filibuster, that bill will not pass, will not be brought up for a vote because of the filibuster. So, what is a filibuster-proof majority? How many votes? Filibuster-proof majority, you need how many votes? 60 votes. So in essence, generally, guys, you need 60 votes to pass anything in the Senate. Does that make sense? Not 51 votes, you need 60 votes. Okay? Now, remember, the Senate is the one that considers presidential appointments, yes? So when the president appoints a cabinet member or a federal judge, the same rules used to apply. So if you saw President Biden chose somebody for the Supreme Court that you really thought was the wrong person, you could filibuster it. And this happened. When Obama was president, the Republicans kept filibustering his judicial appointments. And so the Democrats at the time, led by a guy named Harry Reid, who was the Senate Majority Leader, changed the rules of the Senate. This was called the nuclear option. And they said no longer on judicial nominees can you filibuster. That it only takes 51 votes for these, not 60. Okay, so Obama got his judges on the bench. Yes? Well, you've heard this thing. What goes around comes around. Well, guys, after Obama, there was a guy named Trump. And when Trump appointed his judges, guess what the Democrats couldn't do? They couldn't filibuster. And a few years later, lo and behold, what I thought would never happen, Roe v. Wade was overturned. So who can you thank for that? You can thank Harry Reid, the former Senate Majority Leader for the Democrats in the 2000s, while Obama was in office, for changing the rules of the Senate with the nuclear option, saying that you only need 51 votes. So if you want to blame somebody, if you're pro-choice, for Roe v. Wade being overturned and President Trump being able to pick 3 conservative Supreme Court justices, blame Harry Reid. Okay? Because when Trump ran for president, he said he would do it. He would appoint pro-life judges. He didn't lie. He kept his promise. Okay? I didn't think they'd overturn it even though they were conservative judges. We are out of time already? This is crap, man. Hang on. Okay. Passes the House, it goes to the Senate, same process starts over again. So most bills start in the House, they go over to the Senate, they go back to the committees. Okay. So listen, the chances of a bill that starts in the House being the same bill when the Senate has voted on it are very small. The bill's going to change. So remember when I talked about conference committees where they bring both sides together? Yes? Okay, so here's the deal, folks. I'm going to finish this tomorrow and then take you through how Obamacare went through, just as a review. And then we're going to take the test on Thursday. I'll give you a review day. I really don't have time for it, but I'm going to give it to you because I'm nice. Still going to talk about the executive and judicial. Don't worry.